Hello. Welcome back to the Renaissance Room podcast. You will notice if you are watching this on YouTube or Instagram or TikTok that our set looks a little bit different today, and we are doing a little bit of a different episode today as well. So I am not in my dark and moody side of the studio today. I am on the other side of the studio on our big and handy dandy inflatable mattress on the light and airy side of the studio, and I am in my comfiest comfy comfs. This is my comfort set. I have bought 2 of them now because I'm obsessed, and I might even be wearing them into summer because I love them so much, even though they're clearly for winter time. But I am here with 2 buckets that I'm going to tell you all about today. Again, if you can't see what I'm doing over here because you're listening to this pod instead of watching it, I have these 2 buckets with a bunch of papers inside of them. And what I like to call these 2 buckets is this is the before bucket, and this one is the after bucket. It's also called the booby bucket. And again, if you can't see it, it is a little canister with a set of titties on it, because why wouldn't there be? This is actually a leftover piece of wallpaper from my old studio. We had this gorgeous Renaissance wallpaper mural on the wall in the dressing room. I miss it so much, but it couldn't come with me to the new studio. But I did save this tiny little piece of boobs. So what we do with these 2 buckets in the Ren room is when my client comes in for a photo shoot and we, spend the morning getting their hair and makeup done, they pick out outfits in the client closet, and then right before we start doing the photo shoot, I ask the client, how are you feeling? And I give them a little note card and a pen, and they fill out a phrase or a word or any thought that comes to mind about how they're feeling before their session, and they put it in this bucket. And then we start the photo shoot. And then at the end of the day, after we've done all the photos, the client has gone to lunch, they come back to see all their images edited on the big screen, and then I give them another piece of paper and a pen and ask them again, how are you feeling? And I know I've spent a lot of the last few episodes telling you about why I think Boudoir is so transformational, but I thought it might be nice for you all to hear today, straight from my clients' mouths, why it was so transformational for them. So we're going to read through a few of these today. For the record, every single one of these women are real clients. They came in, they don't have modeling experience. They did this for a myriad of all kinds of different reasons for themselves or for their partner, and they had no coaching from me. All I ask when I have them write something down is, how are you feeling? So this is raw, pure honesty from women just like you who are here and doing a photo shoot for themselves, who are looking for a boudoir experience to help them change their perspective about themselves. And what they wrote down is completely anonymous. So I don't know who wrote what. We're just going to go through and read some of them so you get a good idea of what it might feel like to be a client here in the Ren Room before your photo shoot and what might happen by the end. Let's dig in. Okay, this one says jittery, which makes sense. A boudoir shoot is nerve-wracking, right? You've got all this build-up to it. Maybe you booked the session 9 months ago or a year ago, and you have really high expectations about it, so it's totally normal if you're going to be jittery for that. Eager. It's kind of a cousin of jittery, right? I love this one. This is one of my favorites. This person wrote, scared, excited, but ready to be unleashed. Unleashed, that's an incredible way to explain the precipice of that moment right before you start taking your boudoir photos. I'm actually kind of obsessed with the word unleashed. I think maybe we should do unleashed mini sessions. I don't know what that means. Maybe it's a screamy, ragey mini session, but either way, whoever wrote this, thank you for that genius idea that I may put into action. Okay, we've got a few cards that say excited and proud. Nervous. That makes sense. This one says nervous. Hee hee. Just a little hee hee at the end. Nervous excitement. Again, that makes sense. I see that probably the most often. People say, like, I'm nervous and excited. And sometimes I think about how those two thoughts and emotions are really hard for us to untangle. And sometimes they're the same. You know, sometimes your brain and body has a hard time distinguishing between anxiety, like the negative kind, like fear anxiety, and excitement. Your body is kind of like getting ready to go for either of those things in the same way. I would imagine it feels similar to the idea of getting ready to jump out of an airplane or go bungee jumping. I wouldn't know because I would not be caught dead doing that. I don't like anything dangerous. Like, I will do lots of stuff outside my comfort zone as long as it's in the safety zone. But jumping out of a plane is probably a no-go for me. Although I have said never before about other things and been wrong. So who knows? But I will most likely never jump out of an airplane. However, I have had clients compare the feeling of right before you start taking your boudoir photos to jumping out of an airplane, which makes a ton of sense. Both of those things require a lot of vulnerability and bravery and courage. And you know the thrill of it is partly why you do it. So they kind of like go hand in hand. You can't really have one without the other. I often tell my clients right before we start taking pictures where they're like nervous and in their first lingerie outfit and maybe their whole butt is out and I'm fully clothed and I'm about to show them how to pose. I look at them and I say, this moment right here, the one where you're feeling like so scared and nervous and vulnerable and wondering what the fuck you just got yourself into, this is the hardest part. Everything from here on out gets easier. As soon as we start taking photos and I start showing you the back of my camera and what you look like, you are going to get so bought into the process so quickly that suddenly in 5 minutes, you're going to realize how much fun you're having. You're going to be like, okay, I get it. Katie asked me to do this crazy thing with my elbows and my knees and my butt, and I feel so down while I'm doing it. But then she showed me the camera and I look hot as hell. So let's do it again and again. Another outfit, another set. Like, you're going to get so into it so quick and you're going to forget ultimately how scary that first 30 seconds was. So for all of the women who wrote down nervous and excited, I get it. You're not alone. I actually think it's a normal human response. All right, I just pulled a bunch more out. Okay, this is so interesting that I pulled these two out at the same time. One of these says lucky, and one of these says brave. And this might be a hot take, but anytime someone tells me they feel so lucky that they found me in the Renaissance Room, or lucky that they had this experience, or lucky that this was an opportunity that they had to heal themselves and their relationship with their body, anytime someone tells me that, my first instinct is to say, babe, you created that luck. And yes, I have perfected my craft. I've taken a lot of courses. I've invested in myself and my business to be able to host this space for people to come and be photographed and be celebrated and be supported. However, I wouldn't be able to even do this work and use those skills if my clients weren't brave enough to show up and vulnerable enough to show up in front of the camera. So anytime someone tells me they feel lucky, I tell them, you only feel lucky because you were brave enough and courageous enough to show up. You did the work to agree to this idea, to this vulnerable thing, to come in and say, I'm going to be perceived anyway, even though having someone really see me seems so scary. Having someone witness me in my undies, that is terrifying. So the idea of doing a boudoir shoot requires bravery, even though maybe sometimes it feels a little bit like luck. So that's my hot take. You're not really that lucky, babe. You're just creating your own luck by choosing yourself, by coming in to do a boudoir shoot, even though it's scary as fuck. Perfect timing with this one. This makes sense to me as well. This person wrote, I feel nervous, excited, and proud of myself for trying to get outside my comfort zone. And I have news forever who wrote this. You didn't have to try to get out of your comfort zone. Just showing up to a boudoir session is getting outside of your comfort zone. So I would say trying to get out of your comfort zone, success, you did it. All right, I pulled a few more out here at the same time because I'm not sure how the sound of all of these cards are going to be on the recording and if they're going to sound cool or annoying. So I didn't want to annoy you guys with that sound over and over again. So I pulled out a few more cards of the before bucket that say nervous, anticipatory, good vocab word, scared, excited, and anxious, and nervous but excited. So if you've learned anything about this before bucket, I would say we've learned that pretty much every human who comes into the studio feels some kind of nerves and or some kind of excitement. So if you feel like you can't do a boudoir shoot because you're scared, just know that's actually like the prerequisite. like to do a boudoir shoot, like there is a level of fear that is going to be built into it, and that makes you normal, right? Like if you're saying to yourself, I don't think people who do boudoir shoots are scared before they do them, let this be your sign that you are wrong. Pretty much everyone is scared before they try it. So if that's how you're feeling, you're not alone. You are not the exception. You are the rule, right? Like almost everyone walks in here and says, I'm a little bit nervous, even if they didn't think they were going to be nervous, because there's just a lot of energy on the day, you know? There's a lot of excitement. There's a lot of like what ifs. There's a lot of uncertainty. But I promise you, by the end of the day, and you don't even have to take my word for it because we're about to read the after bucket, but by the end of the day, you will look at yourself through a different lens than the way you started the day. Okay, let's read the last few cards in the before bucket before we move on to the after bucket. This person wrote, I feel sexy as hell and nervous excited. So they did a hyphenated version of nervous excited, which I love. Also, I love that this person already felt sexy before we even did the photo shoot, because even the simple act of getting your hair and your makeup done and pampering yourself can make you feel sexy. So even if you're not, even if you've already done a boudoir shoot and you know what the experience is, I bet you can connect to that version of yourself that you felt right before you started your boudoir shoot and feel sexy as hell again if you give yourself some of that pampering, if you get your hair done, if you have a friend do your makeup for you. Or maybe you're good at makeup. I'm not. If I want to feel super, super sexy, I need somebody else to do my makeup for me because I don't know how. But either way, I like that this person wrote that they felt sexy before they even got to see their pictures, because caring for ourselves and doing things for ourselves that make us feel confident can help us access the confidence we build at a boudoir shoot in the future, anytime. This person wrote very excited, very vulnerable. And last but not least, we have a card that says a little nervous on how to pose, and then wrote face-wise. So I think that means how do I make my face look sexy, but excited, which is a great point to bring up. I will absolutely be walking you through every single pose, including what to do with your face. So if that's one of the things holding you back from a session, do not worry. I will never have you do a pose that I can't do myself. I learned how to do a handstand so that I could show you how to do one if you're somebody who wanted to be able to do a handstand for their boudoir session, okay? I will be doing the same things as you. I will be showing you how to arch your back, how to point your toe, where to put your arms, how to hold your hands and your fingers and close your eyes and breathing. The whole experience is honestly just a yoga class in lingerie. So if you're expecting how to pose to feel kind of like that, maybe it'll feel less scary, right? We do a lot of cat cows, a lot of tabletop and a lot of other yoga adjacent things. And I will tell you a little bit of a secret, which is that to make a sexy face in boudoir, one of the keys is just breathing. and relaxing your face, right? And then I teach you a couple other things about how to make eye contact with the camera and a few other tips about how to sort of make that quote unquote sexy face. But either way, I will be your guide for all of that. You do not need to practice or know how to do it in advance or anything like that. So makes sense that you would feel a little bit nervous how to do that. But I promise you, every single woman that you see on my Instagram is not a model. They did not know how to make that face before they came in for their photo shoot. And if you're worried about not looking like those women that you see on my website and my Instagram, let this be your sign that those women didn't know how to pose or what to do with their face either. I am your coach. I will help you. I promise. Now for my favorite part, the after bucket, the booby bucket. Let's read through a few of what my clients had to say after their photo shoot was over, after they've seen their photos and they've spent and invested an entire day into themselves. Sexy as hell is the first one. Duh, sexy as hell. This one says, so confident, grateful and pampered, powerful. I love seeing that word. This one says, relieved, fun, hot, sexy. I think relieved is such a relatable word to put on here. I don't know if I've ever seen anyone else write it other than whoever this person was, but that makes so much sense because I think there's such pressure we put on ourselves as women in general every day, obviously to look a certain way, but I think a lot of us have a fear that we're not going to look like the other women who we see in boudoir imagery. We have a fear that we see all these people on my Instagram or other boudoir photographers' Instagrams, and we say, oh my God, she looks so confident and sexy. I will never look like that. I will never look that confident. I will never look that sexy. I don't know what to do with my face. I don't know where to put my hands. How will I ever look like that in a photo? And I think that it's only natural to have a feeling of relief at the end of the experience when you get to look at the photos and be like, holy shit, I do look like those other women on that Instagram page, or I do look like that person that I never thought I would look like. So I love that that person wrote relieved. Optimistic. Okay, I love that word. I hear so often from clients, like weeks after their session or even months after their session, that the confidence that they built from doing a boudoir shoot carried into their everyday life. So I know it sounds like a wild thing to say that getting naked in front of a camera helped you get a promotion at work, but I swear to God, it is like a massive ripple effect. When you walk out my door with a new sense of confidence, it's not just a new sense of confidence in your body and what it looks like. It's a sense of confidence in what you're capable of. And suddenly the world feels bigger than it did before you walked into my studio. Suddenly your opportunities feel more abundant. Your deservingness is witnessed by yourself. You realize all these things that you want and you deserve to have them. And maybe you weren't speaking even to yourself about those wants. Maybe you didn't even admit that there are things that you wanted. And now that you have a new sense of confidence in yourself, you also have a new standard for yourself of what you deserve, which is so cool that that can start with like a silly little lingerie photo shoot. This card says, confident, sexy, loved, and proud. God, what more do you want in life, you know? If every day those were the 4 things that I aimed to do and feel and be every day, I would be happy. Confident, sexy, loved, proud. Incredible. Oh, I hear this one all the time, and it never gets old, but this person wrote, I feel unbelievable. I just can't even believe those photos are actually me. This is probably one of the number one reactions that I see during your image reveals in the studio. So after you come back and get to see all your photos on the big screen, so many women sit on my couch and stare at that screen, like jaw dropped to the floor, mouth wide open, staring at themselves and in disbelief that that body they see on the screen is them. And logistically, sometimes that makes sense, right? Like, how many of us have seen our butts from the angle that I'm taking photos of your butt? Like, None of us. It's impossible. We can never turn around to see our butts in the same way that I can capture your butt on my camera. But the tiny things that women find themselves able to appreciate in these images that they can't see usually because they're A, not looking through the female gaze lens that I am, and B, they literally just can't see themselves from that exact angle. Some of the things that I see women falling in love with about themselves are their belly, which is something that I personally never thought I could fall in love with on my body either. Some women mention that they fall in love with their profile in a way that they used to be self-conscious about. There's body parts that people don't realize that they appreciate about themselves, like their collarbones or the small of their back or their calf muscle. And sometimes it takes people a little while to reconcile that the person being sexy, being confident, being strong, being vulnerable on that TV screen is the same woman as themselves. Sometimes people don't even realize it until days later. It's like a disconnect sometimes that the person on that screen couldn't possibly be yourself because that person looks confident, that person looks hot, that person looks sexy, and maybe you don't identify that way every day, but slowly that person in those pictures and the person that you feel like, the more you look at your images, the more they start to mesh together. So you become that confident, vulnerable, brave, strong, sexy person that you see in the images that you go home with at the end of your session. Okay, these next three I pulled all have the same word, which is empowered, which is one of my favorite hopes and dreams for my clients, to leave my session feeling empowered, feeling like they can do anything that they want, anything that they can put their mind to. It's such a special honor that what I get to do every day here is something that can give women this feeling. All right, let's read a few more because they just brighten my day. This person wrote, proud, fulfilled, excited. This person wrote, sexy, empowered, so lucky. Another baddie who made her own luck. Empowered, grounded, proud of myself, and comfortable in my body. This one says, sexy as fuck. I feel beautiful and confident, with a little heart emoji. I really love the F word, in case you guys haven't noticed. So that's one of my favorites when people use it, when they say sexy as fuck. I love it. Okay, this person wrote excited. This person wrote powerful, exclamation mark. This person wrote at ease, liberated, and proud. Oh, another one of my favorite words. This person wrote empowered with a big exclamation point and then wrote hashtag fuck the patriarchy. That's right, babes. Fuck the patriarchy. We love to see it. All right, a few more. This one says, I feel so much sexier than I thought I was. This person also wrote surprisingly sexy. I love that is so many people fear that they won't feel or look sexy. And I think there's sort of like, I don't know, a misnomer or a myth about Boudoir is that the photos themselves look so sexy, but when you're actually doing the poses, sometimes they don't feel sexy. So sometimes it's a little bit of a trusting the process, and you will feel sexy afterwards when you look at the photos, but you might not remember feeling sexy in some of the poses. Some of them certainly feel sexy to do them. And we do a lot of like embodied movement. There's a lot of poses that I ask people to do where I'll kind of say, okay, great, I just bossed you around for 5 minutes. Now I want you to do something with your body that feels good for you. Is that a body trace down your skin? Is that a big stretch where it makes your body feel nice and long? Is that a little self-hug because you just need to give yourself a little squeeze right now? But it always surprises me how many people think that they're not sexy. And we're certainly going to get into some other like fun sex talk episodes, but I personally think that sex and sexiness and confidence, really, those are skills we can build. Those are characters we can put on. Those are things we get to choose to emote. I love that a boudoir shoot helps people realize that sexiness and confidence is an option for them. It's not a genetic thing that you have or you don't have. It's a mindset, it's an energy, and it's a choice, and it's a practice. So I love when people write things like, I'm sexier than I thought I was, or I'm hotter. Who knew I was this hot? Girl, I did, but I'm glad you know now. This one says, so grateful to experience this vulnerable way of getting to know myself better. It really is an incredible way to experience yourself in a different way. And what a gift to give yourself, you know? How beautiful is it that you decided to invest in you to do this for yourself, to get to know yourself better? You are kind of badass, you know? All right, this one says grounded, powerful, playful, surprised, happy, grateful to be a part of something bigger than me. The female body rocks. I hear this often, that people have a newfound appreciation for the female body when they start to look at their own female body differently. And, you know, we hear this topic all the time in like therapy talk and podcasts and says the girl with a podcast, but we hear this term all the time of like, talk to yourself the way you would talk to your best friend. I would never say something mean to my bestie about her stretch marks, but I would say terrible shit to myself about it. And that's a skill to get better at. I like to call it your inner critic, and choose not to believe the things that little inner voice is saying. But I love that a boudoir photo shoot sort of ripples out to the way women feel about other women too, including their own body. Like seeing their own silhouette in this soft, gorgeous, feminine way suddenly makes them appreciate other female forms as well. And it's such a cool, like, collective part of the experience. Okay, this one is one of my favorites. I'm going to read it as the last card. It says, it's hard to explain, but like an animal back to its most basic instinctual self. Hot, earthy, soft, vibrant, everything. That one's just so juicy. I love it so much. So why did I feel like it was so important to share with you all what some of these words are on these pieces of paper, of how people felt before and how they felt after their photo shoot? Well, I think it's so important to emphasize how absolutely nothing about these women's bodies changed between 9 a.m. when they wrote down their before word and 4 p.m. when they wrote down their after word. Their body didn't change. They didn't magically lose weight. They didn't magically get a six-pack. They didn't get Botox. They didn't get filler. They didn't change a damn thing about their body or their lives. The only thing that changed between the morning and the afternoon of that day was their perspective, was the way they choose to look at their bodies and talk to them. Nothing else changed. And that is the magic of a boudoir shoot. You can walk through that door feeling one way about your body, and you can walk back out it feeling a completely different way. Okay, well, I am going to spend the rest of the afternoon cleaning up and putting away all of these before and after note cards, which, to be honest, it looks like I'm going to need a bigger bucket for the rest of 2026 because we're running out of space. But while I'm doing that, I invite you to do a little bit of homework if that's your thing. And that homework would be to write down on a piece of paper what your before word would be if you were thinking about doing a boudoir shoot, even if you're not actually thinking about it. Just a fun exercise. Write down what words you might be feeling before stepping in front of a camera in your lingerie. And then I also encourage you to write down the afterwards that you would aspire to feel. What would you hope to feel at the end of a boudoir shoot? And then I invite you to check out my website and see if you might want to do a session, because I have a secret for you, which is that those words that you wrote down for your afterwards, they already exist inside of you. That version of you, she's already here. You just have to give her a little invitation to show up. And maybe that invitation's a boudoir shoot and maybe it's something else, but either way, the exercise of writing something like this down, I think, can be really super powerful. I hope you enjoyed hearing a little bit more about the Run Room experience from clients themselves. And most of all, I hope you enjoyed the booby bucket. I'll catch you guys for the next episode soon.